Hi, so in today's video we're going to do a mixed media project using watercolor and colored pencils, where I'm just going to trace over this bunch of grapes real quick onto some watercolor paper. I'm using Fabriano Artistico watercolor paper. I think it's 140-pound hot pressed. Don't quote me on that, I'm not positive. But I'm just using some transfer paper and going over a black and white printout of the reference photo really quickly, just to get the basic shapes of the grapes on there. I'm erasing my line drawing because it's a little dark, and so just using that to lighten up the lines. So now I'm wetting my paper with some water. And I'm mixing a variety of colors together to get a nice rich black. I don't ever like to go in with straight black. It tends to look a little flat, and the color is much more alive and vibrant, even though it's really dark in value. It just looks better when it's got some other tones mixed in. So I'm just doing like a mixture of like blue and black and purple. I think mostly blue and black here. A couple different blues in there as well. And just painting in all of the black area around the grapes, all of that negative space. Now you could tape your paper down because using water on here is going to make it buckle a little bit, but this is just kind of a quick project that I'm doing, so I didn't worry about it too much. Just continuing to work through getting that background in there. Now I'm not worrying about it being completely dark. It doesn't need to be, fully black. This is just a shortcut. I'll be putting the colored pencil over the top of this. This just helps fill in all of the little fibers, the white fibers of the paper that you would see with just a few layers of colored pencil. This is kind of a shortcut to get you past that. But we will be going over this again with colored pencil. I'm just capturing some of those negative spaces in between the grapes now. Obviously I have this sped up. This part is sped up. Going over the black now with some red, just to make that black a little warmer and richer. And this is just a basic watercolor set that I got off of Amazon, I believe. I can't remember the brand name. Now I'm putting in some yellows and greens, kind of a chartreuse color here, and some more greens to get the base layer of the grapes down. Again, same thing, I'm just using this watercolor as a shortcut. You can put the watercolor down and then draw over the top of it. Now you can't do it opposite. You can't put colored pencil down and then draw a paint over it. Because of the wax binder and the pencils, the watercolor will just bead up on top of it and it won't stick. But doing the watercolor first and then the pencil over the top works really great. Now I ended up, I did this drawing with just the basic 12 pencil set of both Polychromos, Faber-Castell Polychromos and Prismacolors. And I ended up struggling to get the grapes as golden as I wanted, as I saw in the reference photo. And so I wish I had put more yellow down as opposed to green in this underpainting, and that would have shown through my pencils a little bit more and given things a more yellow tone rather than the green tone that I end up with. It just would have looked like it was glowing a little bit more. I'm just kind of paying attention to my reference photo where the lights and the darks are, some of the changes in the tone. There's some like kind of red tones on some of these grapes. But yeah, so there you have it. That's the watercolor base in. And so now I'm going to start drawing in with the colored pencil. And I'm just going in to lighten some of these areas. I'm putting white in. I apologize, I couldn't get the video that I recorded of doing that top section. I couldn't get it to load for whatever reason. It just didn't want to come into the rest of the video. So I've jumped ahead here and done the leaves and the first few grapes. So now we're tuning in to where I'm working on the rest of the bunch. So I've got my yellow Polychromos. I'm just putting in some color here, trying to warm these grapes up. And switch over to my light green. And the whole thing here is to make them look three-dimensional, to really sell the fullness of the grape, the roundness of it. And so we're using value to create that illusion. So value is how light something is versus how dark it is. And so having a light side and a shadow side helps create that illusion of roundness and depth. I'm just doing a light coat of this green over that grape. So now I have my light ultramarine Polychromos. I'm working in on some of the shadows there. And just really pay attention to where the values are on your reference photo and try and get those in as close as you can. Here I'm taking one of my blending stumps and I'm just smoothing that out. Kind of softening my pencil marks. And you want to really soften those up so that you don't see any actual lines from the pencil. You want to sell the illusion of a smooth surface of the skin of the grape. You can really see how the colored pencil over the grapes on the top left are, those really stand out compared to the grapes that just have the watercolor on them, down along the rest of the bunch. Going in with some white Polychromos here to try and carve out the highlight. Just working in some light sections onto this grape. Now I've got my dark green Prismacolor. I'm going in and adding some darker sections. Now I've got my brown Prismacolor and going in and adding, there's some like russet tones on some of these grapes. And I think I'm also using it here to desaturate some of the green because the brown has a lot of red in it, and so the red is a complementary color of the green, so it will tone down some of the greenness. Using my white Polychromos, carving out some of those lights again. Going back in with the light green Polychromos. Now I've got my white Prismacolor and I'm putting down a nice thick layer of the white Prismacolor so that I can blend on top of it. It doesn't completely cover up the watercolor underneath. It just gives me a waxy base to blend the rest of my colors. I've got the light green Prismacolor right now. I'm putting on a light layer of that over the white. Notice I'm not using a lot of pressure here. It's just a light layer. Now I've got the light brown Prismacolor, working on some of those shadows. Back to the light green Prisma. Now I've got the light green Polychromos. There's just a subtle difference between the greens. So some spots I want the Prisma green and others I want the Poly green. I'm taking my blending stump and blending that out, get it nice and smooth. Going back in with the white Prismacolor. I have the dark green Prismacolor, working on some of those outside edges. They're more in shadow. Now I've got the black Prismacolor, darkening that up. And again, it's this use of value that's going to create the roundness of it, to make it feel like a sphere. Taking the walnut brown Polychromos. I don't want it straight black. There's some warmth on the skin of this grape. And the white Polychromos here. I think I'm carving out the stem right now, trying to lighten it up so I can go in and add color over the top. Yeah, I'm taking that light green Polychromos in there to bring the stem out a little bit. I've got the, I think that's the raw umber Polychromos, warming up the side of that grape. And using that to desaturate some of the green in the grape as well. Again, they're complementary colors. It's more of an orangey color, but at least it's closer to red, and the straight red would be too much. I'm going in with the dark green Polychromos, refining the shape of the grape a little more. Going in with some black. Going in with that white Polychromos, pulling out those highlights, pressing pretty hard to carve those out. Now I have the white Prismacolor. I'm going to brush off the crumbs first. So I'm putting down another layer of wax now over this grape with my white Prismacolor. I'm pressing fairly hard here to get a nice thick layer down. And because this paper is, it's watercolor paper and it's a really high quality watercolor paper, it can stand up to pressing that hard right off the bat. You wouldn't want to do that with a typical colored pencil paper. Now I'm taking the light green Polychromos and putting on a light layer. And this is where if my base coat, if my watercolor had been more yellow, more golden in tone, it would have shown through this green a little bit better. Instead I got, I ended up with kind of a minty color as opposed to a glowing golden, yellowy, green grape color. I have some black Prismacolor in here, and I'm working in some of the negative space between the grapes. Oh, actually, I think that was dark green Prismacolor. Sorry about that. Now I've got dark green Polychromos. Really look carefully at your reference photo to observe where the darks are and where the lights are. That's going to go a long way in helping make your the shape of your grapes look really believable. Going in with some of the Polychromos yellow. And some of the raw umber, I forget, burnt ochre. Maybe it's burnt ochre. I forget the name of this one. Here I'm using a Polychromos walnut brown. Put in some little details. Going for the darker green from the Polychromos. Just kind of darkening up the edges of the grape so it helps it look more spherical. Bringing in some of my white Prismacolor to soften those pencil strokes out. Coming back in with the Polychromos green, or I'm sorry, Prismacolor green. Just kind of going back and forth between the white Prismacolor and this green Prismacolor, just trying to get that rounded edge to look rounded. I think this is the apple green, I believe. It's the more yellow version, trying to get these grapes to look a little bit more yellow. So I struggled with that throughout this entire drawing. Using the blending stump here and smooth it all out. And if I were to redo this drawing, I would do my underpainting with the watercolors a lot more yellow, so that I didn't fight to get the grapes the right color, just using the pencil sets, the limited pencil sets that I have. Going in with some of the brown Prismacolor, just defining the, I think there's a actually a little mark on the grape, on the skin of the grape. I'm putting that in there and then kind of shading the edge of it a bit more, creating that three-dimensional illusion there. Doing the same thing with the black, kind of the black Prismacolor, just helping this grape stand out from the grapes around it. Back in with some dark green Prismacolor. With this, you really want to pay attention to the shapes of the shadows and pay attention to how hard and soft the edges are. That's going to go a long way to making that three-dimensional spherical look believable. Going in with some of the Polychromos yellow. Still struggling with getting these to look more yellow. The yellows that I have in both the Polychromos and the Prismacolor sets are fairly bright, saturated yellows, and are just a little too intense for what I'm trying to do here. I'm using a really light touch with this, just trying to get the grape warmed up a little bit more than it is. Smoothing all of that out with my white Prisma. I'm putting on a layer of white Prismacolor over the grape on the far side there. Now I'm going to go over that white Prismacolor with some of the apple green. I'm not sure if that's actually the right color for that, but it's the green from the Polychromos, the light green. And a little bit of the yellow from the Polychromos. some of the darker green Prisma. Actually, I think that's just the warmer green, not the dark green. Going in with the, I believe it's the burnt sienna from the Polychromos. Getting some of those red marks on the skin of the grapes in there. Defining that edge a little bit. Using the yellow Polychromos to warm that up a little. And then the light green, same thing, just trying to warm it up some. Going in with the dark green Prismacolor now. I'm just working on separating this grape out from the rest of them around it. Taking some of the white Prismacolor to blend out some of the harsher strokes there. I'm doing a little bit more blending with my blending stump. Just getting everything to look smooth like the skin of the grape. Going over some of the black negative space with a dark blue Prismacolor pencil, just trying to add some depth and dimension into the black surrounding the grapes. So putting on a pretty thick layer there. And coming in with some of the, I believe this is the burnt umber. I'm just adding in a variety of warm and cool tones to give that black some dimension. And then just topping it off with a layer of the black Prismacolor. Pressing pretty hard here. Really push that color into the paper. Remember, this is the Fabriano Artistico watercolor paper, so firmly without doing too much damage on the tooth of the paper. It can still take quite a bit. Adding in some dark green Prismacolor in there. Oops. And just blending it out more with my blending stump so it's a nice, even, rich black. Just doing some overall blending out with my blending stump. So from here on out, I'm going to go ahead and speed up the recording. As you guys have already seen me do quite a bit of this, and so you kind of understand my approach, and so you can just follow along still, but it's a little faster so the recording isn't like 3 hours long. So here I'm using a white gel pen just to add in some highlights onto the grapes, just to fully give that illusion of 3 dimensions. Be careful with adding gel pen over colored pencil. It is not archival when you do this, which means it won't last for 20 years or more. But you can still do it, especially if you're just going to do prints from the image.